Welcome, everybody, to week 6 of the Transfer Portal CFB Gambling Podcast. I'm your host, George, and with me are my two co-hosts, Matt and Mike. Say hello, guys.
Howdy.
What's up, everybody?
So we're back. We're here to talk week 6. We're going to cover everything, all the ranked games, all the storylines, all the spreads. We're going to give you our 5 picks that we're tracking every single week, the over, the under, a dog, a favorite, and our lock of the week, and then send you on your way with an upset and a parlay or teaser. But before that, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel. Homefield Apparel is a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis, and they're committed to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. Now they've got a growing collection of over 150 colleges to choose from, including all of your favorite teams, with new collections being added every single week. And if you're a fan of Homefield Apparel, if you want something that they got and you're a first-time customer listening to this ad, use our promo code PORTAL, P-O-R-T-A-L, to get 15% off your first order. Now, that link is in the description of this YouTube video of our podcast, and you can follow that, and then also follow us at thetransferportalcfb.com, at tportalcfb on Twitter, and engage with us there, or like, subscribe, and comment on this YouTube video. So talking week 6, first we got a little bit of cleanup to do week 5. Now, I know we always cover all of our picks, how we did, and talk a little bit about, how the week went, but this week was a little bit of a bloodbath. We had some engagement talking about how we did with our picks. Every single one of us missed our locks. So a little bit of an overview, but Matt, how are we feeling about recovering from last week?
Well, me and Mike were we couldn't go 12-0 on locks, but I really thought you had to hit yours at some point. 0-5 is starting to give me a little bit of a statistical anomaly there.
It's 0-5 with my overall record being like 12-13. So it's kind of nuts that I'm picking the wrong things to be locks. I think Mike called it last week like the immovable object and the unstoppable force of me picking Washington, who is covered every single week. And not only did I pick Washington minus 19.5 for my lock, I picked them for my parlay, and they were the only leg that lost for like a plus 900 parlay. So I don't know if I'm cursed. If I am, that's terrible news for this week, because we'll get into that later. But yeah, getting into week 6. Week 5 was a pretty fun week. Mike, what was your highlight of week 5, watching some of these games unfold?
My answer is the easy one. It said Duke Notre Dame game. Duke's for real. Like, even though the Riley sprained his ankle to end the game, like, their defense is for real. Holding Sam Hartman down that entire game. They're gonna be fun to watch in the ACC for the remainder of the year. That was my favorite game to watch for the weekend.
Yeah, like, Duke is for real. Riley Leonard apparently came back that I don't think he has any tears, so he should be back at some point this year, which is good news for Duke. Their defense is for real. Literally, their biggest mistake was on that 4th down play. It was like 4th and like 12 or something, and they rushed 3 and did like a prevent defense for some odd reason.
They blitzed on 2nd and 3rd, and it worked great. Like, Sam Hartman was off his line each time, and then just on 4th down, drop 3, no contained at all.
No contained at all, and you didn't even have to blitz too many people. Just do what you've done to get you there the entire game. They completely changed their defense for absolutely no reason. But no, awesome entire week. We've had some pretty good teams. I want to call this section like the wagon watch, because part of the talking points for this entire season so far is that everyone is pretty good in the top 10, but no one is actually really good. And people were starting to rank Washington first. People were, talking about other teams being jumped and the Big Ten being a lot stronger than the SEC. But a little bit of wagon watch going on for some of the teams who are starting to pull away. I mean, the Big Ten's looking pretty good. Michigan and Penn State, Mike, they're looking like a wagon.
They're looking pretty good. I'm not going to say wagon just yet. I think that the Iowa win is the most impressive win on their schedule for sure. But we'll see what that means in the future. I'm not going to call it a wagon yet. You got 2 weeks for that.
2 weeks for that. And then Washington, even though they didn't cover 19.5, still look pretty good. Michael Penix Jr. looks fantastic. And then, dare I say, my Texas Longhorns they're taking care of business, and I feel like the the downfall of Texas teams over the past basically decade since the Colt McCoy days, where they would win a couple of exciting games, or they'd be in a lot of exciting games, and then they would just drop games to teams that they had no business dropping games to. They would lose to a Baylor or Texas Tech. Texas seems to be taking care of business. They're covering spreads. They're looking good. They're not leaving teams in games. They're kind of doing what they're supposed to do. Their run game looks phenomenal, even without losing their top two running backs of last year. So, yeah. But who's your favorite team so far this year, Matt? Who's your wagon watch?
Well, they're not wagons. So yeah, that's my favorite team to watch. The Miami resurgence has been my favorite thing, because I was so high on Miami last year, but I don't think they're wagons. I think the only one you didn't mention is Florida State that I consider is there, because really their only weakness is their secondary. Every other, they have two really good wide receivers, good running back, good line, good quarterback, good defensive line, and then the secondary can let them down at times. If that secondary can get it together, I don't know that there's a lot of teams that can beat them on their best day. And then their schedule for the rest of the year is pretty easy. They have Riley Leonard, if Riley Leonard's back in 3 weeks, and then Miami. And other than that, it's the bottom feeders of the ACC for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, they took care of business to start the year. A lot of people had them, kind of floating around number one in their polls as well. But yeah, this I'm just super excited. I think the next 2-3 weeks are going to really determine and start to shape the playoffs, because we got a lot of top teams starting to clash. And I know one of the things people are complaining and talking about is a lot of these Big Ten games that Fox has are starting to be at noon, which it's going to be real odd seeing like a top 5 matchup of like a Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan just hit at noon. It doesn't really feel like it's hitting the same. But that being said, moving on to last week, bad beats of the week. I didn't personally have this as a bad beat, but watching that Duke Notre Dame game, Notre Dame covering 5.5 against Duke late in the game when they were, in field goal range to end the game, and then they ended up scoring a touchdown, was absolutely wild. I thought they were just gonna kick a field goal and not cover the spread, but it kind of blew me away that happened, and mattered to a lot of people. I personally didn't matter to me, but thankfully that would have been a real bad beat. But Matt, any bad beats for you this week?
Yeah, I was shocked when the running back didn't go down, because that's feeling a really widespread thing nowadays, that if the game's over and you're in field goal range, just go down. And then they also got the 2-point conversion, because it was 13-14. So if they just don't get a 2-point conversion, that's 14-19. It's still not covered. So it's probably going to be a bad beat either way. But mine, it's not really a bad beat. It's just Jalen Daniels randomly didn't start after, from what maybe I was just out of the loop. I hadn't heard anything about him not playing until like an hour and a half before kickoff. All of a sudden, they're like, Jalen Daniels is warming up. And I'm like, well, that's not good for my over. Jason Bean's a big step down.
Yeah, you're not going to be betting on Jason Bean at the over.
And then they only ended up missing by 7 points. So I think Jalen Daniels is probably worth a touchdown over Jason Bean, but who knows at that point. But that'll be mine.
Yeah, and what about you, Mike?
Mine was Boise. I had them on the under against Memphis. It was 60 and a half or something like that, 60. And it was 25-35, 45 seconds left, and they scored a touchdown that ruined either my push or a win. I was hoping they were gonna like run it out or kick a field goal or what have you, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's so bad when you have an under and you're just like waiting for, like hoping that they just run out the clock. I feel like the NFL they always do that, but college kids just want to score. Like
I get the trap stuck up.
Yeah, it's a little more unpredictable. Like Pat Mahomes is sliding at the 2-yard line. He literally looked and ran at the sticks against the Jets and then just slid. But yeah, no, it's a little bit different for like Notre Dame running backs or Boise State trying to get into the end zone.
As someone who had a big same game parlay that would have won with Mahomes scoring a touchdown there, I was like, it was like plus 1,500, and he goes down and I'm just like, just fall in, just slip, someone hit him, please.
Oh man, it's nice what you can do when you already have your guaranteed money and you don't really have to pad your stats with touchdowns like that. But no, moving on to week 6 though, a lot of pretty good games. We're starting to round into form. Storylines are starting to form. We got our wagons kind of set. The ranked teams are starting to figure itself out. Two of the storyline games that aren't necessarily ranked games. The first one is Bama at A&M. Now, this is just a huge game because storyline of Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, and A&M is actually 4-1, having a pretty good record, only losing to Miami, who, like you said, one of Matt's favorite teams to watch, but yet they're still not ranked. And Bama, obviously, a little bit shaky earlier in the year. They haven't fully figured out their quarterback position, but they're still Alabama. They still play super physical, and they've still been able to beat teams up a little bit after the Texas loss and come back to being a pretty solid team. So that's one of the big storylines of the week. And then the other one being Maryland. Maryland's 5-0. They're not ranked, and that's mostly because of how they've gotten to 5-0. A little bit of an ugly, 5-0 start, and they're facing their first real test. Tua Tagovailoa facing Ohio State coming into Maryland, or they're going into Columbus, into the shoe, facing Ohio State. So it's that's going to be a huge game. I think the spread's 20.5. But what are you guys looking for in one of those two games? I'll start with you, Matt.
Mine would be what A&M's. So obviously, I had an A&M against. I spread a spread against A&M last week because I thought their offense would be significantly worse without Connor back there, and they looked pretty good against Arkansas, which is like they're not a great defense, but they're an SEC team. They're a solid defense. So I'm interested to see what that looks like against a significantly better Bama defense. Can they still hang and they still put up points so that their defense can maybe shut down Alabama offense that isn't quite what it was, but. That's what I'm more interested in.
Yeah, and it's Max Johnson, right? That came in.
That's who played, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean Max Johnson's like I kind of thought there would be a huge step down too, especially Connor Wiggum was looking fantastic. But I mean Max Johnson's like a 5th year, he's like a redshirt senior.
He's
got all sorts of he's got all sorts of experience. His second school, I think, at least. I think he only transferred once from LSU, I believe. But no, he's I mean, he knows what he's doing back there. So it seems like A&M is still kind of humming with him. But what do you think, Mike, for the Big Ten matchup, the undefeateds going at each other? You think Maryland's got a shot?
I do. It'll take a lot though. So like you said before, this is another one of those snoozers at noon. So it takes both teams to wind themselves up to get going for it. But Taulia, they're going to go as he goes. They have athletes. Their defense isn't that bad. But it's going to really be, can they keep up with the scoring of Ohio State? Because I don't think I think Ohio State's going to score on Maryland's defense. But it should be a close one if Taulia can answer the bell.
Is Martin fully cleared? Because I know he took a knock last week, but I think he came back into the game.
I think he is. I haven't heard anything about him not playing. I feel like the line would maybe even move a little bit with someone like him too. But no, there's I think Maryland, it all depends. I think Ohio State tends to not come out of the gate swinging the same way, and I after a week off, it really depends on them resting up a little bit, and if they've been able to game plan a little bit and just be able to follow the script, they should be able to come out a little bit quicker than they have in the past. But no, I think Ohio State's defense has been playing fairly well, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know how Maryland puts up all that many points, and they have to put up probably at least 30 something to win. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But going into our ranked games of the week, we got a couple 4 ranked games this week. The first one, LSU at Missouri, and that's LSU's -5. Next one is Notre Dame, number 10 at Louisville, number 25. Notre Dame's favored by 6. The third one being Kentucky, number 20, against Georgia, going between the hedges, I should say. Georgia -14.5. And then finally the Red River Shootout. It's Oklahoma hate week. Number 12 Oklahoma and number 3 Texas facing off at the neutral site in Dallas, and Texas is -6.5. So Mike, out of those 4, all these ranked games that we got, what do you got your eye on? And don't say the Red River Shootout, because that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I was gonna save that for you. I'm gonna continue to go with Notre Dame. So Notre Dame at Louisville. Tough place to play. Something's got to give with Notre Dame. It just feels like they've been playing in. They lost the game against Ohio State, but they've been playing in so many close games. Something's got to give, and Louisville always plays to its opponent, whether they're bad or good. So I think this is going to come down to the wire. I like the line where it's at, but something feels like it's got to give for Notre Dame. Playing with fire a little bit too much.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I love Sam Hartman. I like Notre Dame's offense, but their secondary I think is pretty good. And coming off 2 weeks ago against Ohio State, I think and Duke, truthfully, I think this is going to feel a little bit different for them. So I can see the line moving to 7. I'm still surprised it's not a full touchdown, but I do. Yeah, it's Notre Dame's either going to show up or figure out what their real identity is. But Matt, what about you? What do you got your eye on this week for ranked games?
For me, I think the favorites have this in 3 of the games. So the one that I like the dog in is Missouri, because I like the Missouri team. They've been really good so far. Brady Cook's been kind of cooking to start the year, and the big issue is LSU's defense couldn't stop a parked car. Like they allowed 55 last week. I think they allowed 40 the week before. That their defense cannot stop anybody right now. And even though Jaden Daniels is being the good Jaden Daniels right now, because he's kind of got a Jekyll and Hyde routine. He's been the good Jaden Daniels most weeks. They're still in close games because their defense just can't stop anybody. So I'm interested to see if Missouri can pull off an upset at home.
Yeah, and it's LSU -5. I think it was bounced around from 5 to 5.5. I think this opened at 7.5 plus 7.5 for Missouri. So a lot of money coming in on Missouri's side over the past couple of days. I do love Missouri. I think Missouri is a good pick. I don't love it at +5 as much as I would at a full touchdown, but I flirted a lot with having this as my true upset, but ended up not taking it. So I'll save that for later. But no, love all these games. Kentucky and Georgia, we'll cover that real quick, but I think that's also a really, really good game because I truthfully don't think Georgia is, I don't think they're really worth the number 1 ranking that they have. And it's going to be a little bit different when Kentucky comes into town and Kentucky knows how to score. They're going to be able to probably get Georgia's defense more on the heels than they're used to being. And I don't really know how much Georgia can score, and a 14.5 point spread seems like a lot for, a ranked Kentucky coming in and playing pretty well. But saving the best for last, the Red River Shootout, Red River Showdown, whatever it's going to be called now, Oklahoma, Texas, best game of the weekend. I think game day is there too. 6.5 point spread, Texas is favored. I think both of these teams are a lot of fun to watch. I obviously love Texas and I'm rooting for Texas. Got my little Longhorn behind me, but I don't know. I just think this is going to be a super exciting offensive game. I forget what the over under is. I think it's in the mid 60s or it's low to mid 60s, but yeah, this is going to be a super exciting game. It's all really about, is Texas for real? They should be able to cover this if they're back the way that people are already anointing them, but people seeing how, all the kinks in Bama's armor after Texas beat them, starting to, is Texas really that good, or other teams that they play just not really all that great? So just because they're not really making mistakes doesn't mean they're, a wagon just yet. So I think, like Mike said before, we'll wait till week 6 or week 7 or 8 or so for the wagon watch. If Texas can pull off, a double-digit win against Oklahoma, we're all the way back. But yeah, what do you guys think about Oklahoma and Texas facing off?
I'll talk about it a little bit more later in my favorites, but I think Texas is the better team. I think Texas is a fringe number 1 team, and Oklahoma is a mid-ranked team, which is what the numbers obviously say, them being at 2-12. But I think there's a decent gap in between the two teams in terms of talent level, so I think Texas should be able to take care of business.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I agree. But I do think Texas can lose this game. I don't think Oklahoma can win it. But Texas, they're so much better up front than Oklahoma is. Oklahoma has done a lot of crazy things on the back end with turnovers, and Brett Venables has them playing defense, dare I say.
Yeah.
But not in the trenches. Not you saw with Texas bullying Alabama that day. They were able to get time for the long passes. They were able to run the ball. They need to do that against Oklahoma and not get cute, not try to throw intermediate routes down the middle. That would be a very, very bad idea, I think, against this Oklahoma defense. So I would look for Texas to come out running the ball.
Yeah, they are. They're big on both sides of the ball, which is fantastic for Texas. But no, it's kind of odd that the Big 12, some of the defense is starting to show up, and the SEC is just airing it out all over the place, and then all of a sudden Bama doesn't ever air it out quarterback and they're lost. But never thought I'd see the day. But yeah, no, like Matt said, it does feel like Texas is a little bit of a fringe number one, but that's also mostly because every top 5 team feels like a fringe number one, and then it just feels like there's a middle of the pack, and then there's like a 20 plus. So I don't know. We'll figure out in a couple weeks, where everyone starts to fall. But this is a huge week for the Big 12. How it's the outlook of the Big 12, and obviously for Texas, we'll see if they're able to pull it off and be fully back. But reviewing what we had last week for our picks before we get into our picks this week, all 3 of us lost our locks. So I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who lost a lock, even though I've lost 5 in a row, and I'm 0-5 on locks. Both of you guys are now 4-1, but I did go 2-3. Nothing to brag about, but both of you guys went 1-4. So a real deep in the red week for us last week. Someone literally questioned. He's like, do you guys even know what a lock means? So thank you for that. That's the confidence boost I'm looking for. But I really put my faith in Washington, Michael Penix Jr. I cannot believe they didn't cover. I went to bed with them up like 10, and I was like, I just hope they just put up a bunch of points as I'm going to bed, because I couldn't watch anymore. But yeah, so for the records for where we are thus far during the season, all of us under 500 right now. I'm 12-13, 0-5 on locks though, and both of you guys are 11-14, 4-1 under locks. So looks like we got to turn it around this week with our official picks. So going into official picks, we'll do all 5. We'll do our upset and then our parlay for the week, and then we'll give some additional games, things that we're thinking, what to look for, things that we want to bet as well. But we'll start with the over. Matt, I'll start with you. Who is your favorite over for this week?
I went with Colorado and Arizona State. I expected this to be in like the low to mid 60s, like 64, 65 range. And only being at 59.5 is surprising, because we saw what Colorado's offense could do last week. And it's not like Arizona defense is that good at all. They put up 41 against USC and like nearly had a hand in that game. But the reason they lost is because without Travis Hunter, their defense is a big liability. And Arizona State has good players on offense. Jaden Rashad is a decent Pac-12 quarterback. Scadabo's a good running back. They have pieces on offense to be able to put up points, especially against below average defense in Colorado. So I think this number is going to get into the 60s pretty easily. And I think Shedeur Sanders and Colorado in general, just after 2 losses, this is kind of a get back game for them. They're finally facing not USC or Oregon. They can kind of show out a little bit, and I think they're going to try to.
Yeah, that's kind of how I read this game too. I was just a little skeptical because having Travis Hunter on defense also means you don't have him on offense. So it's a little bit of a miss there. I think Shedeur Sanders kind of turns it around, but I truthfully think Deion, after having them see the offensive weapons of Oregon and USC, it might be a little bit easier for them to be able to play, defense against an Arizona State offensive attack. So I think it'll be close. I do like that pick. I'll give mine. I have Alabama, Texas A&M over 46.5. I mostly have this because I was surprised by Max Johnson, played a lot better than I thought. I think Alabama is a little bit more vulnerable than people realize. And I do think Alabama has, started to turn a corner a little bit offensively. The USF game, they were just looking abysmal on offense, changing out quarterbacks, trying to figure it out. Jalen Milroe, he's not, totally the guy in terms of, being able to light up the scoreboard, but he is a good dual threat, attack, a nice runner, and they just have weapons everywhere. So I think they're going to be able to score. I don't think they're going to be able to shut Texas A&M down. I think they average, around 30 points a game as well. So I don't see this game getting into the 60s, but I can see this game hitting, high 40s, low 50s. fairly easily if they go back and forth a little bit. And if there's any kind of mistake or, a random score on a defensive play, then we're right in there. So kind of feeling pretty good about over 46.5 for Alabama A&M. So what you got, Mike?
I'm going against the Cardinals in here. So I'm going Purdue at Iowa over 39. I know I'm going to get flack for it, especially if it doesn't work out. But Purdue shellacked Illinois last week, which was against one of my picks. They've been getting better every single week. They're still not a good team, but Iowa is more the key here. So Iowa has averaged the last 3 weeks 90 plays on a game on defense. Their defense is gassed. Their defense was letting Michigan State drive up and down the field, and Michigan State is a bad football team. I know that Iowa has the backup quarterback in now, but he actually led them down the field 3 times for 3 field goals, not touchdowns. Well, hopefully those will turn into touchdowns with a little more first-team reps. But they also have the chance for the punt return touchdown, things like that Iowa always has, pick sixes, things like that. So I just think anything starting with a 3 in this game is too little.
Yeah, I really wish we could splice in the exact moment last week where you were like, Purdue is a bad football team.
I know we 100% should. We 100% should.
Oh man,
I still think they're bad.
I just I'm seeing bad football team over 39 points. This totally feels like a trap game. Like I saw 39. I was like, I'm not going near this. There's something I don't know, and what I don't know, or what I do know, is that I can absolutely never trust Iowa. Brian Friends apparently does not care about his contract whatsoever. So
I feel like got 26 last game. He got 26 last game.
Yeah, but
he got 0 the game before. That's the big.
Yeah, okay, so he's averaging 13. Great in the last 2 games. That's fantastic. But
he needed 50.
Yeah. So that's the only one in this podcast who's been able to win with an Iowa bet has been Matt. So we'll see.
No spoilers, but we might be headed back to Iowa this week.
We might be dipping back into the well. We'll see. So all right, over 39.5. I can't say I love the pick, but I support the pick, Mike, because I do think Purdue's a bad football team, but they can show up sometimes, and never know what's going to happen with Iowa. But let's move on to our unders. I'll start with mine. I know I got burned last week picking USC with an under. It looked fantastic until Colorado started scoring on them. So I know their defense is Swiss cheese, but I don't think Arizona is as good as Colorado is. So I'm picking under 72, USC and Arizona. I do think USC is going to put up probably another, 40, maybe a 50 burger on Arizona, but I don't see Arizona scoring 20 points. I think this game is going to be a 48-10 kind of shellacking by USC. I probably will be wrong just based on, USC's defense being utter trash, but I do think Shedeur Sanders is probably the best quarterback that they're going to face, outside of Bo Nix. So I think I feel pretty good about, Arizona not being able to cover or pull their load for this. But yeah, USC Arizona under 72, way too high of a number. What do you got? Mike, I'll go right back to you.
I'm taking Wake at Clemson under 52 on this one. This is more about the dynamic in Clemson just as much as it is about the ineptitude of Wake Forest. This is not Sam Hartman's Wake Forest. So that has been evidently clear so far. So they did put up a decent amount of points on Vanderbilt the 1 week, but other than that, most of their scoring has been done in garbage time. I think Clemson coming in at 2-2. We said they were going to answer last week at Syracuse, and they did. I think Dabo's going to have them geared up. He has his finger on the trigger against his defensive coordinator. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring from Wake Forest side. So I like this pick.
Yeah, under 52, I like that too. It's odd. The spread's a little odd. I think this is 14 as well. So I was a little nervous because I did like the under, and I did like Wake because I liked the under. I think this is going to be just, like a 35-28 or 35-24 game or something like that. But what do you got for your under, Matt?
I like USC because I think it's kind of like a similar USC bet we had a week or 2 weeks ago where we expect USC to get up big here and then maybe kind of pull out the starters and let them rest a little bit before they get into the heavy Pac-12 schedule. I went with I picked that burned me 2 weeks ago in Arkansas State under, but so they did put up 52 and 44 the last 2 weeks, but those were against significantly worse defenses. UMass is like a bottom 5 defense in the country. Southern Miss is somewhere outside the top 100. Troy's a good defense, and Troy's projected to win this game by 16 is the spread currently. And Troy is not a high scoring team. That is not how they win games. They win with defense, and they win by just pounding the rock, short passing game. Troy's put up over 24 once this year. Like, this is not a high scoring team. I expect this to be probably like a 27-17 type game. The one worry here is Jalen Raynor has come in at quarterback for Arkansas State, and he's looked really good through 2. He's only played 2 games, but he's over 690 yards and has 10 TDs in those 2 games. So the hope is he slows down here against what is a significant step up in defense being played. But I think 52 is too high for what I expect to be a slow pace, low scoring game.
Yeah, no, I think it is too. I actually like that pick a lot. It does make me a little nervous because if Arkansas State jumps out on top, then it kind of throws the entire, Troy game plan on its head. But no, I do like that pick. I think Troy's defense is pretty good. Let's move on to favorites. I'll go to you first, Mike. Who's your favorite of the week giving points?
If I knew Jalen Daniels was going to play, this would be a lock, and I think it's probably why it's so low. Kansas -2 versus UCF. They're listing him as day-to-day. I don't think he practiced on Monday, but then there were murmurs coming out of that Kansas beat that he was running around yesterday. So I feel like he's going to play. Even if he doesn't, Leipold's a really good coach. UCF is not a very, very good team, and it's going into Kansas. After they came up a disappointing loss to Texas, I think Kansas is going to win this at least by a touchdown.
Yeah, coming off disappointing loss in Texas, and then, I get a little frightened without Jalen Daniels. Obviously, is a little different story, but a little frightened with Gus Malzahn and a little bit of the trickery on offense. I do like John Rice Plumlee. I think he's just one of the most exciting players in college football. So we'll see what UCF can do, but I do like this, and this is potential, pretty good value if they announce that Jalen Daniels is going to be playing in a day or so here. But I do like that a lot. I'll jump over to you. Who's your favorite Matt? You hate week, baby.
Texas is back.
Texas is back.
I said it before. I think there's a big gap between the top 5 teams, 5 or 6 teams in the country, and then that middle tier ranked teams. I think the gap is big enough that Texas, if Texas does their job, they win this game by 10 points. Their offense is better. I think Quinn Ewers is a slightly better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel's a good quarterback, but I think Quinn Ewers is a step up. They have the better running game, and they have the better defense. And then their line on both sides is better. So they're better in a lot of phases of the game, and I expect them to be able to handle this game pretty easily. I think this is like Alabama was like kind of like the pre-awakening of Texas is back. I think that winning the Red River rivalry kind of solidifies Texas is back. They're not to be messed with this year.
Oh, I've been on the Texas back train, baby. It was from week 2 on. Texas has been all the way back, but love that pick. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But my favorite for this week, I already went to the well with it you already went to the well with it with your over, Matt, for Colorado, Arizona State. I like Colorado -4.5 here against Arizona State. So it's at Arizona State, but Arizona State's not really, that tough of a place to play. But I think Colorado coming off 2 really, really tough games, one against, just a bully of a team in Oregon, and then USC, I think if they ended that game differently, if USC would have just, continued and blown them out, I probably wouldn't have taken this, but they showed a lot of life. They actually showed that they're, a pretty good football team, being able to be punched in the mouth like that and still have some life in them and make it an actual game late in the 4th quarter. But I think that they're just a better football team, and Deion's going to have them super ready. And because, he keeps all the receipts, everyone has now written them off again. So I think they're going to be able to come back and beat Arizona State by about a touchdown. So I feel pretty good about 4.5. So Colorado at Arizona State -4.5.
I like that. I think this Colorado team, as it stands this year, this version of them is best as the kind of the underdog playing the underdog role.
Mhm.
So I think that this team in general, their identity kind of thrives in that role. So I think this is a really good week to buy on them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They got knocked down a little bit. It's exactly where Dion wants them to be. So, but I think Travis Hurst still got about 2 weeks till he plays. Excuse me, plays again. So it's all on Shedeur Sanders' shoulders here. But moving on to our underdog. So team getting points for this week. I'm gonna start with mine. Jumping right into it. I talked about this a little bit earlier when we went through our ranked games of the week. I have Kentucky plus 14.5 at Georgia. This is mostly because this over two touchdowns with this Georgia team for a ranked team is just too many points. I think Kentucky's a pretty good team offensively. I really don't see Georgia blowing anybody out. They haven't really done that all year. I think they've covered one, maybe two spreads throughout, the year so far. Everyone is still buying in and still seeing Georgia as, back-to-back national champs. I don't think, by any means, Kentucky's really going to pull this as an upset, but I could see Kentucky scoring early and then trying to hold on, and Georgia just, pushing their weight around, being Georgia, and then going up by 10 points and just kind of holding ground. So I feel pretty good about Kentucky with over 2 scores, so plus 14.5. Move over to you, Matt. Who you got for your underdog getting points this week?
I like that. This Georgia team just doesn't really have the juice to pull away from anybody like that. Like they've been struggling with like teams that they beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns every year, in recent history, and they just haven't done that yet. I have one that we also talked about earlier. I think this was close to being my upset. Well, I think Missouri has a really good shot of pulling off an upset against LSU at home, and it's mostly because of the LSU defense. Brady Cook's absolutely been cooking to start the year. I think he set the SEC record for pass attempts without an interception last week, and he still didn't throw, or 2 weeks ago, and still didn't throw one last week. He's 11 or 12 touchdowns on the year, no interceptions still. Luther Burden has been really good at wide receiver. He's been one of the best wide receivers in the country to start the year. And then their defense has played really well, which is the opposite of what LSU has been doing when we're allowing pretty much everyone to put up points. And I also think this is a LSU team that's going to be tired because obviously the shootout last week against Ole Miss, and then the week before they were also in a close 1-score game against Arkansas. So this is a team that's been under a lot of stress and stressful games, including like getting blown out by LSU or FSU on national 7 to start the year. I think this is a team that is kind of being overranked. We talked a little bit about teams that are 4-1, 5-0 that aren't ranked, and I think their best argument for being ranked is LSU's 3-2 and still ranked. So I think Missouri is kind of knock them out of the rank conversation this week. I think Missouri pulls off an upset here, but I really like them at plus 5.5.
Yeah, I was really close to making this just straight up my upset. I love this pick. 5.5. I think we talked about this earlier. The lineup opened up, I think, at 7.5. So it's been, aggressively moving towards or back towards Missouri being able to keep this within 1 score. I could easily see them winning this game, and it's a little odd to see an LSU team where the secondary is not playing well and they're just giving up a lot of big plays like that. But yeah, no, love this pick. What about you, Mike? Who do you got for your underdog getting points this week?
I got Maryland plus 19.5 at Ohio State. So it's something we've already talked about this game. Taulia having a great year. I think it's going to be a slow start at that noon game in Columbus. And I don't see Maryland not scoring 3 times. So like if you're going to tell me that Ohio State's going to put up 35 to 40 points, they haven't really done it much, if at all, this year. So I just don't see that happening. So as we saw last week, this is the same exact spread of that Washington Arizona game. Like once you get up by a couple of scores, you don't really care, how much you're up by. So 19.5 is a lot of points.
Yeah, 19.5 is definitely a lot of points. I do fear a little bit the slow start. I'm actually going to this game, so super excited. Obviously going to be rooting for OSU because I got to be a homer. So I'll probably sprinkle on OSU. I might even sprinkle on the over because if Maryland just scores, OSU is just going to start calling some deep plays to some of their big guys. But no, I do. This is a pretty good pick just based on this being the new game in Ohio State. It all really depends on how they come out of the gate because if they come out of the gate swinging and score a touchdown or two, I think it'll be pretty tough for Maryland, but it depends on how they game plan because they're coming off a bye the previous week. They had a real like punch in the mouth game against Notre Dame that they barely pulled off. Ended up pushing the -3, but barely pulled off like we talked about. But yeah, pretty good. 19.5 is a lot of points. Learned that from my lock of the week last week that yet again missed on that. But speaking of lock of the week, let's move on to who we got for lock of the week. Both of you are 4-1. So pretty good running odds. I am 0-5. So I'm looking to turn that around this week. This is a huge lock week for me, but I'll let you two go before I do mine. I'm going to start with you, Matt. What do you got for the lock of the week?
I said we were going back to Iowa. We are going back to Iowa. -2.5 at Purdue. I just need us to loop in Mike saying it's not a good Purdue team. This Purdue team isn't a good team. Just need
not
that.
a good football team. I just want that on repeat. I want to have a banner there. This is not a good football team.
I agree. I don't think they are. Like Iowa, obviously losing Cade McNamara, that sucks for him. He's out for the year with the ACL injury, which is you get real grass in all stadiums. That was another turf ACL injury. But it's not like the Cade McNamara was the reason this Iowa offense was scoring. This is a run first team. They're gonna run the ball, and I just don't think Purdue's going to be able to score very many points. The Iowa defense is still the Iowa defense. They're going to make plays. They're going to get a pick. They're going to force a fumble. I don't think Purdue has the juice to score on them much more than 13 to 17 points. I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I hope it goes over 39.
Thank you.
I would like this to be a 24-17 game.
I'll take it.
But I think Iowa wins this one. It's probably only going to be by like a touchdown or 10 points and a field goal. But I think they win this game by more than a field goal. I just think this Iowa team is significantly better than Purdue.
Yeah, when you said I could see him scoring 10 or 13, I was like, oh, that doesn't fare well because that means Iowa's scoring 14 or 17. They're just going to move like this. But yeah, Mike, what do you got for your lock of the week?
I'm going back to the well. So Bama did me well when they played Ole Miss. Bama -2 at A&M. So close to a pick 'em, right? It's a 3:30 p.m. start. So the 12th man it's not going to be that night atmosphere that it was a couple years ago with that Magic kicking game. I know you guys are talking about Max Johnson and believing in him. I do not. So the reason that Texas did so well against Bama is because they bullied them up front. You don't bully Alabama up front. So I bet you Nick Saban is doing his old tricks with his assistant coaches and talking about it all week. Hey, you guys are soft. You got pushed around. Nobody thinks we're any good. And they're gonna be all fired up for this. And I think they win handedly.
Boo-hoo for Alabama. No one thinks we're
right
good.
For Alabama. Right?
It's like a couple of years ago when the guy I forget which player from Georgia was like, no one believed in us, and they're like, you were preseason number 2. Like
they were saying we're gonna be 7-5.
Yeah, like we're gonna be 7-5. I was like, multiple people picked you to win a national championship. But no, I do like this pick. I do like Bama -2 a lot. That's part of the reason I have this game going over 46.5. So I'm fine with Bama blowing them out. If Bama puts up 40, I could see A&M putting up at least 2 scores. But I do like this pick a lot. I think they're going to go in and take care of business at the 12th man down there. And then my lock of the week, we've already talked about this game at nauseum. This was Matt's favorite as well, but I am putting all of my chips forward. Texas is back. -6 in Dallas against Oklahoma for the river rivalry or shootout, whatever we want to call it. I think Texas is, I always buy in. Normally I buy in earlier like I did this year. And by now I've probably already had my heart broken, but this Texas team looks different. They're taking care of business when they're supposed to. They're a good football team. Last year, they blew the doors off of Oklahoma. I think they put up a 50 burger and I think they shut them out, if I remember correctly, or they had a sad field goal at the end or something. But I think Texas, they're looking really good. They're clicking on offense. Their run game looks great. They're physical on both sides of the ball. I mean, they like Matt, you kind of ran through it with your favorites, but I think they basically have, an advantage in every single area. And I'd go to say that, I really do think Quinn Ewers has kind of molded into the prospect that he was supposed to be. And I think he's a much better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. So I think if he could do the right thing, make the right decisions, which he has been, there's going to be, a couple of people running wide open that are going to be able to put up a lot of points. So I do think this is going to be, a higher scoring game. I do feel like this going into the 60s, but I think Texas should be winning this game by double digits if they want to really justify being a top 3 and potentially moving towards that number 1 seed in the country. So Texas minus 6.5 versus Oklahoma neutral site.
I think I should go without saying how confident I am in that Texas pick is that I saw you had it as your lock and I still picked it as mine.
It's, I mean, I don't want to do the unstoppable force and a movable object again, but my goodness, like this is also like very personal for me, man. Being a Texas fan, this is I normally shy heavily away from betting on Texas unless I really feel good about something. And I don't know. I think Oklahoma, just their performance the last 2 weeks kind of overvalues them a little bit. And also I get it, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. I'm not totally counting that out, but this spread is putting into a lot into this spread is the fact that it's a rivalry game and also like, they're trying to spoil Texas this season and whatnot. So we'll see how it ends up, but I do love the pick a lot. But no, thank you for also believing in me, Matt. But all right, so we got our 5 picks. We're looking to turn it around. 1 and 4 for both of you, 2 and 3 for me. We gotta have a positive week. One of us hopefully going 5-0. Copying the Mike formula of bouncing back and forth from going 1 and 4 to 5-0. But let's do some money making picks. So these are upsets, plus 2.5 or something 130 and above. So we'll give you the pick, a true upset, and the positive money associated with it. I'm going to start with mine. I was going to pick Missouri. I do love the Missouri pick over LSU. I think that was like a 195 upset, but I'm going with Washington State. I was a little shocked to see that, this game was about a 3.5 point spread. It's plus 145. It's at UCLA. So it's a little bit different playing at UCLA. I think I forget UCLA's young quarterback's name that just took over. He's fantastic prospect. Yeah. Oh yeah. Dante Moore. He was like, number 2 player in the country or something, but so he does look great. I do think they're really good, but I think coming off of playing Oregon State, extremely physical football team, they're not going to see that level of physicality with UCLA. So I do think they're going to be able to score a little bit, and I don't really see why this was, over a field goal spread. I could be wrong, but I think Washington State is just a better football team. I think they're still ranked too. And UCLA is not ranked as of yet, but yeah, plus 145. I think that's pretty good value for what should at worst be a pick'em game. Washington State over UCLA. So Matt, what do you think about that? And who do you got for your true upset?
I was really disappointed that normally I'm first or second to put my picks in, and I went to the pick sheet because I was last today, and I went, okay, Washington State. Oh, no, George got that one. Oh, then I went to do another one, and Mike had that one. We're on my third choice now. Missouri would have been my pick had I not took them for my dog here, but I'm going to go with Tulsa over FAU. So we're going a little off the beaten path here. But I'm not really sure why Tulsa is an underdog here. FAU is not a good team. They're 1 and 3 to start the year. Tulsa's 3 and 2, including a big win over Temple last week, which is a good conference opponent. FAU's only win on the season is over Monmouth. And then they lost an actually pretty close game against Illinois, but then got blown out by Clemson. I just think that Tulsa's a step up in competition. I think they're the better team. I think the main reason they're dogs here is that this game is at FAU. If this is either neutral site or a home game, I'm pretty sure Tulsa's the favorite here. So I like the value at 155.
I like the value a lot. I think Tulsa's a pretty good football team, and FAU, I think their close loss against Illinois doesn't look as good because Illinois has not been nearly as good as people thought they would be. People thought they were going to compete for the Big Ten West, and I think are they 2 and 3 or 3 and 2 now?
2 and 3, I think.
Yeah, 2 and 3. They have not looked too good. So FAU, by association, doesn't look that good to me either. But I do like this pick. That would make this about like a +4 spread. But you might as well. I mean, I think Tulsa's just a better team, so I think that's good value for 155. What about you, Mike? Who you got? What do you think of our picks?
I like both yours. I was going to pick Washington State before I saw yours in there. The Missouri one is just, it's close to +200 right now. I think the value is fantastic, but I'm not willing to throw it on the board. So I had Buffalo +130 against Central Michigan. Central Michigan had a tough game last week against Eastern Michigan. They're probably going to be gassed. Buffalo's defense is finally showing up. And it's going to be cold and rainy on Saturday, which makes me very, very happy for a MAC style Big Ten game. I think Buffalo is going to win this football game. So like Matt said before, this one should be pick 'em at the very least. I don't think like Central Michigan beat somebody good. Might have been UAB or South Alabama or someone like that. But their other matches were against like Maine or Vermont or New Hampshire or something like that. I forget what it was.
It's one of those schools in the Northeast.
yeah, it was. It was like 50-48 or something like that was the final score of that game. So I don't think that they're. I'll do my quote again. I don't think they're a very good football team.
Not a good football team.
Not a good football team.
That's gonna be our moniker. When I put out the graphic, it's gonna say clapping like not a good football team. That's but I truthfully don't know enough about this game to really have like a solid take about it. I mean I trust you. I think if Central Michigan, if that was like the best they're playing on their schedule so far, I think I could see Buffalo pulling this off. Is the spread like about 2.5 right now?
Yeah, they took down Akron, who's been my moneymaker all year.
Yeah, and Akron knows before they lost their quarterback too. So Akron has a pretty decent defense though.
Yeah, this Buffalo was my pick to win the MAC this year. They've been kind of disappointing, but they're in their first game in MAC play. They are 1-0, so they're still on track to win the conference. But Central Michigan, they've been a weird team because they were supposed to be a heavy read option team because they were going to run Bert Emanuel Jr. back there, and then they benched him pretty early in the year because they put up 7 points against Michigan State, which is never a good sign for your team. Yeah. And they allowed 31 to Michigan State, which is again never a good sign for your football team. So like I said, this was my second choice when I went to do my picks. I was kind of pick Buffalo here. I think this is a really good pick.
Actually, I love all these picks. Honestly, this one I know we keep talking the Missouri one to death, but I do like all these upset picks. But maybe this will be a sprinkle on all three of these for potential extra moneymaker. But speaking of 3-leg parlays and extra money makers, I'm going to go right back to you, Mike. Let's talk about our parlays and teaser of the week. So at least 3 legs, parlay or teaser. Talk about how you got there and what your picks are.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks I've missed my parlays by 1 leg, and I've done 4 both times. So I went back to 3. Did my normal buying points. UGA -10 versus Kentucky. We already talked about that game. Georgia's really, really good still, even though they're not your slightly older brothers, Georgia, like we said last week. They're still.
If they win by 13, we'll both be happy.
Yes, exactly. Let's thread the needle. I got Mizzou +11.5. I don't think there's any way that they're losing by more than 11.5 in that game. And then UNC, I forget what the line is. It might be 9 or something like that versus Syracuse. I got it down to 4. Syracuse is not a good football team. No, but Syracuse is not a bad football team, but UNC is a good football team. And Drake May is still that. He is him. So I think they're going to win by more than 4. That'll give you a +219 value if you tie those 3 together.
Yeah, I like all those. I do love your trick of buying points. But yeah, UGA Georgia at -10. It's a lot better looking than 14.5. I love the Mizzou pick. I mean, that alone. But I do think Drake May. I think UNC's a little bit underperformed thus far, but I do think that's a pretty good pick as well. So +219, double up your money. I like that. I'll move over to you, Matt. Who do you got for your parlay or teaser of the week?
I went with mostly big money lines this week, and then I threw in an alt line as well. So I have Texas money line versus Oklahoma. We've talked about to death. I just think Texas is going to win this game. South Alabama money line against UL Monroe. South Alabama's kind of rounding into the form after a bit of a disappointing start to the season, and I don't think UL Monroe is good enough to compete with them. Oregon State money line versus Cal. Oregon State's just a really good team. They're much more physical up front, and they take care of the ball better than Cal. I think they win that game pretty easily. And then I also have UNC money line versus Syracuse, so not quite -4, but just take care of business, win the game. Then my alt line is Buffalo +4.5 versus Central Michigan. So I bought a few points there just to get it above a field goal, and then I got it above 4.5 as well, just in case like a random 21-17 game. So tie those together, it's 5 legs, each +373.
Yeah, I like all those. One of the picks I do like was just straight up Oregon State -9.5 at Cal. So I do like them taking care of business. But who's like South Alabama's coach? I think because they've been kind of turning it around, and I think they've been they're supposed to do pretty well.
What's it? Pomick. Pomick. I forget his first name, but it's Coach Pomick, I think.
Yeah, because I do. They're kind of like a sneaky darling that everyone seems to start jumping on the bandwagon for. So, but no, I do like these. I do like the money line, the mostly money line parlay, and then getting your extra points for Buffalo there. And then for mine is I'm swinging big again. I swung big a few weeks ago with a couple three big games, and took care of business. Won some money. I think it was +595 last week. I kind of tried to do that again, and in my lock of the week, Washington let me down. The only leg of my parlay to let me down. So I was swinging big again. This is a 5-leg parlay, true parlay. But I'm calling this the all-day parlay because it's one game at every single station of the day. So I got a noon game, a 3:30 game, a 6 p.m. game, a 7:30, and then a 10:30 p.m. Eastern game. So first up, Texas -6.5 versus Oklahoma, my lock of the week. We've talked about it to death. Second up, Alabama -2 against A&M. That's Mike's lock of the week. We've talked about that to death. I love Alabama there. Third up is Colorado -4.5. That's my, straight up favorite of the week. I think Colorado's just a better football team. I think 4.5 is good. So that's the 6 p.m. game, or that's the 7:30 game. And then the night game to close it all out, Fresno State -6 at Wyoming. I think Wyoming's a better football team than they get credit for. They play teams tough, but Fresno State, a little bit of a disappointing game last week, not really covering. I think they were favored by 21 or so, and they kind of kept it a little bit closer than they wanted to, but they're still 5-0. They're ranked 25 in the country. I think Fresno State's able to put up some points, and I could see them winning by a touchdown. So all 5 of those with the true spread gives you +1228. So 4 digits of value there. I think each of those are a pretty good pick individually. So just bundle them together, sprinkle a little bit on that, and could have yourself a pretty good Saturday. It's a little risky going for the true parlay, but I do like it when it hits though. It's a really good feeling, except when I hit that and I miss my lock like I did on the other week. But but yeah, so a couple big money parlays for everyone there, and then obviously our upsets. So those are some of our money makers, but additional picks to throw around, other games that we like. We talked about Missouri to death. I just love that in general. We talked about this a little bit. Notre Dame -6 at Louisville. I do love Notre Dame's offense. I think they're going to be able to take care of business. I already mentioned Oregon State -9.5 at Cal. What do you guys got? I'll start with you, Matt, for additional picks you got your eye on that didn't necessarily make your board.
We talked about it with in the upsets, but Washington State +3.5 at UCLA. I think I agree they have a really good shot at winning this game, so I like the spread by itself. And then on Michigan at Minnesota under 45.5. This Minnesota offense is really bad. They've been unable to score. I think this turns out looking like a classic Big Ten game, like a 28-7, 28-10 game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points this game. I think Michigan's just going to pound the rock, and Minnesota's going to try to do the same thing back because that's about all they can do. So I think this is low scoring. And then what was the other one? I had one more. Fresno State at Wyoming. I think Wyoming, the one you had in your parlay, I think Wyoming's getting a lot of credit here just because of how tough they have played teams. They've been kind of the upset darlings this year. So I think that's kind of why the spread is where it is. But I think Fresno State's more than a touchdown favorite against Wyoming in reality.
Yeah, no, I like all those. The only thing I fear is that Michigan might literally put up like 40-something points on Minnesota. But Mike, what do you got for additional picks this week?
I like a lot of favorites this week. I think this is going to be one of those weeks where the favorites do well on the board. I got Army -3 against Boston College. Yeah, that was close to being my favorite pick. But I took Kansas instead. Michigan -19.5 at Minnesota. The only thing that worries me here is that Minnesota might mean a couple points. But like Matt said, I could see this being a 31-7 game, like very, very easily. With that, since Minnesota has lost Mohamed Ibrahim and Tanner Morgan, they are not the same football team.
Yeah.
It has been shocking the turnaround with just two pieces gone. You already talked about Notre Dame. I love that one. And the last one is just more of a gut pick than it is any sort of data pick. It's the USC -21.5 versus Arizona. So people will see that and be like, well, Washington didn't cover 19.5. I think USC, that the comeback by Colorado last week is probably a little bit of a punch in the mouth for them. Lincoln Riley's listening to all the pundits across the country saying, oh, USC is not that good. And I think he's going to lay it on Arizona for sure.
Yeah, no, I do too. I'm one of the pundits though, because they didn't hold Colorado to keep my under last week. But no, I I do like all those picks. But yeah, no, that's our week 6 preview, all of our picks. So we got all 5 picks. We'll track them like we do every single week. We'll put out this podcast and then the graphic, so you can follow along. You can tail us. You can, fade us, whatever you want to do. But yeah, looks like it's going to be another good week, and teams are starting to round into form. But that's it for us at the Transfer Portal CFB Gambling Podcast. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.